So I found out, I guess it was early this morning, like at 12:30, I found out that I was going to be the one to start things off this morning. And I'm like, well, okay, that's a little bit unbeknownst to me. But I guess the less surprising thing was that I was elected to start first by my brother. So that's brotherly love for you. And there's positive and negative to going first. The positive is you start out and they don't have anything to compare you to. So like, this guy did an okay job. But the bad thing is, there's a negative. If you start out and you do kind of a bad job, then everyone else goes behind you and does a really good job. People look back at the first person and say, wow, you really snuck it up. So, in all seriousness, totally fine going first, not a problem. I just like to harass Dibble a little bit. Truly an honor to be here. I just got to say real quick, I thank you to all the people who put so much work into doing this. It's just such a good time of fellowship and edification to come here. And it's very encouraging, definitely, for sure. So thank you to everyone who put so much effort into it. Today what I'm going to be talking to you guys about is the topic of contentment. And I chose this for a couple different reasons. Number one is, I'm thinking about this a lot as a young man in Christ. How can I live my life in accordance to God's word? How can I have a mind of contentment? But also, I think about it because we live in a society that is anti-contentment, if you will. Think about this. We have a society that's on demand, right? We can get anything that we want with a push of a button, and it can supposedly fill us up. But the problem is we keep wanting more and more because the things of this world just don't fill us up. We have to remain focused on God's word, and that's something that I've been really concentrating on in my life. So, what I'd like to talk to you guys this morning about, we'll break this down. We'll start out with what does God's word say about contentment? What does He say about being involved in this world and how that can affect our mind and have it be don't have a mind of contentment if we're involved in this world. And finally, we'll look at how we can be content. What does the Bible say? How can we put things in our mind that we can be content and live in accordance to God's word? So if you'll open up this morning, we'll start off in 1 Timothy chapter 6, looking at verse number 6. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse number 6. All right, 1 Timothy chapter 6, starting in verse 6, we'll read down to verse 8. It says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us therewith be content." So right off the bat, we see God's word says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. Contentment is great gain. Turn over to Hebrews chapter 13, look at verse number 5. Turn over to Hebrews chapter 13, look at verse number 5. Getting this idea of contentment. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5 says, "Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have. For it has said, I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee." So there we can just get the idea of, and be content with such things as you have. Right? Let our conversations be without covetousness. Don't covet the things of this world. Be content in what we have. Now turn over to Proverbs chapter 16, verse number 8. Proverbs chapter 16, looking at verse number 8. Proverbs chapter 16. Why am I having trouble finding Proverbs? Proverbs chapter 16. All right, so Proverbs chapter 16, verse 8. Look at this. It says, "Better is little with righteousness, and great revenues without right." Think about that verse. We can apply this to our society today. It says, "Better is little with righteousness, than great revenues without right." Andrew Carnegie, at his time, was one of the richest men in the world. When adjusted for inflation, his net worth was $360 million. Okay? And when asked, said, how much is enough? How much money is enough? And you know what his answer was? Well, that's what I have right now. No. His answer was just a little bit more, right? Why? Because he was acknowledging that his money, even though he had it all, he had vast amounts of money. He could get anything he wanted. That wasn't filling him up. He needed just a little bit more to be satisfied, but he was admitting that you never will be satisfied. You can look at entertainment, look at Hollywood, look at all these people that have all this stuff, but yet they're miserable, they're angry, you look at them and like, wow, they're really upset about things and they're uncontent. Their mind is affected, it really affects their actions, and they're depressed. And some of them go far and they commit suicide. Why is that? They don't have anything in these worldly possessions. It doesn't fill them up. It doesn't do anything for them. What fills us up is God's Word. Amen. That's what drives us to have a right mind of contentment. So now I want you to turn over to Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And we'll look at what the Bible has to say about being involved in this world, the dangers that it can cause, how it can cause a mind of uncontentment. Romans chapter 12, we'll start off in verse 1. Romans chapter 12, 1. It says, I beseech ye therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Here it is. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may be able to prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. You think of be not conformed. If this is you in the world, I just get that picture of the world just comes and conforms you. It absorbs you. It takes over your thinking. You're so involved in the things because that's where your identity is. I have to have this stuff. My identity. But the Bible says, no, don't do that. Don't be not conformed to this world. Turn over to Titus chapter 2, verse 12. Turn over to Titus chapter 2. Look at verse number 12. Titus chapter 2, verse number 12. So we see here in Titus chapter 2, looking at verse 12, it says, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. I used to think about when I was younger, I'm so old, very, very mature in my thinking. When I was younger, in my early teens, I used to think, man, look at all the cool things that all my friends had. I worked at this amusement park, and all my friends had this, friends. Right, your coworkers had all this stuff, and they're like, yeah, we're doing all this great thing. And like, here I am, I don't have what they have. And I was like, man, it'd be great if I could have that, right? But what I found was, when they got that thing that they were looking for, I'm going to go out and get my new car. They got it, and they're so great. They're showing it off to everybody. Look at this, look at that. But you know what happened? The very next thing that happened when the next new car came out that the other friend got, they're like, man, my car isn't great anymore. And that just showed me, it's like, you know what? That's worldly lust. It doesn't solve anything. Is it bad to have things? No, it's not bad to have those things. But when you put your identity in there, and those things, it's going to let you down. And that really kind of opened my mind to, okay, it's not bad to have them, but what's the point in going after them if they're going to let you down? If that's what you're finding your identity, you say, I need to have those things, because that's what makes me up. That's what makes my life complete. That's not the case. Amen. So now I want you to turn over to Colossians chapter 3, starting in verse number 1. So we want to look now at, we've seen what God's Word says about contentment. We've seen what it says about being involved in this world, how it can cause a mind of uncontentment. Now let's look at what God says. How can we have a mind of Christ? How can we let the Word of God dwell in us richly and have a content mindset? Proper mindset. Turn over to Colossians chapter 3, look at verse number 1. A familiar passage here, everyone. It's always a good one to read, though. We'll start in verse number 1. It says, if ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is on the right hand of God. Set your affections on things above, not on things of this earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall you also appear with him in glory. So that right there really kind of sets the stage in our mind, right? We can look at that. So set your affections on things above, not on things of this earth. If we're focused on things above, we have a heavenly hope, right? Praise God. We look around at this world, and if this is our home, what's the point? I mean, it's so terrible. Right. And people with no hope, I honestly don't know how they can continue on. If you don't understand God and what He's done for us, the eternal home we have with Him in heaven, how can you keep going? But instead, we have a heavenly hope. We can set our affection on that hope, and that just kind of changes your perspective. When you're thinking in that way, it totally changes your perspective, how you approach things in your daily life, and it affects your dealing and your walk with Christ. Turn over to Philippians chapter 4, verse 4. Now, this is a personal favorite of mine, and I'll tell you why in just a minute after we read it here. Philippians 4, looking at verse 4. So how can we have a good mindset about all this, the world around us? How can we be content? Philippians 4, verse 4, a real short, simple verse, but hits home and right to the point. It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say, rejoice." Well, what does that have to do with contentment? Well, I'll tell you. In the morning, every single morning when my grandfather wakes up, he says this verse in his head. And he says it in his head because he doesn't want to wake my grandma up, right? But how he says it is, he says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say," and at the last one he says, "Rejoice." He just shouts it out in his head. He does it every single morning. And he says to us, he says, you know what? When I say that every single morning, and I start my morning off with that verse, it reorients my mind and sets the stage and the foundation for my entire day. My entire day starts out with God's Word, and hopefully, it doesn't always work. We're going to make mistakes because we have this in nature. But throughout the day, we're going to remember that verse that we start off in the morning. And let me tell you, my grandfather is a very influential and impactful person in my life. And when he says that to me, he's an example to me of what a godly man should look like. Also what a godly husband should look like. And when he does those things, like, hey, maybe I should be doing those things. You know? So that's what I've been trying to do is, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. What a great verse. If we're rejoicing in the Lord, again, we're going to make mistakes. But we're going to have a better mindset and a mind of contentment. Not get involved in the things of this world and let that dictate our lives. So the last thing I want to look at is turn over to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17. Turn over to 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Look at verse 17. We want to end with remembering that our identity is not in this world. I think all too often we get caught up with, our identity is we have to have the nice car, we have to have the nice house, we have to do what our friends do, and that's what makes us up, that's what defines us. But that's not the case. We are not defined by that. Our identity is in Christ. We need to remember that. Mm-hmm. So let's end with this verse, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, looking at verse number 17. It says, "Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. All things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new." What a great verse to remind us of just the great thing that we have. When we have this, we have it all, right? What more do you need? I'm not going to look at this and like, man, I wish I didn't have, eternal security and I didn't have all the things that it promises me. No, we don't look at that way. This is completes you. Therefore, you are complete in Him, Colossians says. This will fill you up. So if we keep our mind focused on this and what God has to say, it'll really affect how we walk in our daily lives as Christians in this present evil world. With that, let's close in a word of prayer. Father, I thank you so much for this time that we have over this weekend, be able to spend time with fellow like-minded believers and just have a time of fellowship, edification, really build up our inner man. And I thank you for all the work that's gone into us and the opportunity I had to do this little session here. And I also thank you for all the hard work that everyone else has put into their messages, and I pray that it'll be a good time of edification there. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Seth.